Good.
Okay, we are now live, I see.
Good morning. I'm Herman Berliner, Hofstra's provost, and it's my pleasure today to serve as Master of Ceremonies. Today is a very special day since we're honoring 4 very impressive Hofstra College of Liberal Arts and Sciences faculty members by investing them as distinguished professors.
Okay.
I'm especially honored to be here since I've had the pleasure to be one of the individuals
Okay. Can you send me
recommending
the live YouTube link?
I didn't catch it.
It says we're live on YouTube, but Carla, I heard Carla's voice.
Yes.
You can go ahead and start now.
Good morning. I'm Herman Berliner, Hofstra's provost, and it's my pleasure to serve today as Master of Ceremonies. Today is a very special day since we're honoring 4 very impressive Hofstra College of Liberal Arts and Sciences faculty members by investing them as distinguished professors. I'm especially honored to be here since I've had the pleasure to be one of the individuals recommending each of these faculty, Gregory DeFreitas, Andrea Libresco, Craig Rustici, and Benita Sampedro, for tenure and promotion. Looking at the names on the professorships, though I never met Augustus Weller, I spent years in the building named in his honor. I have the pleasure of knowing trustee Leo Guthart, who's an outstanding trustee and a very successful entrepreneur. The pleasure of having met Mervin Livingston Schloss on several occasions, and the pleasure of working with Dottie Engle in my early years in administration when she and I both worked in the advisement office. Each of the faculty being honored today is a terrific faculty member in every sense of the word. And now to start the formalities, it's my pleasure to introduce the president of Hofstra University, President Stuart Rabinowitz.
Thank you, Herman. I'm also delighted to be here to help invest these 4 incredible faculty members with distinguished professorships. It's a most unusual convocation in a couple of ways, in a few ways. 1, it's virtual. 2, it's the most professorships that we've conferred in a single ceremony in the history of the university. I'd like that in my bio if you would include that. And 3, we almost didn't have an audience. And the question raised is, can you have a convocation without an audience? But I'm confident that we now have one. We had hoped, obviously, to honor these 4 incredible people in person, but as you know, we can't yet. But while the pandemic may stop us from doing that, we believe it's really important that the celebration of these 4 distinguished faculty members go on. Just as our fabulous faculty continue to teach and to mentor and continue their scholarship unabated through the pandemic, excuse me, it's important that celebrations of academic excellence continue through the pandemic as well. Faculty convocations have become an important tradition at the university because they allow us to honor and reward professors who have contributed at the very highest levels as scholars, teachers, and mentors to our students. Each of these ceremonies reaffirms our goal, our value about how crucial faculty are to the life of this university. It takes gifted and engaged scholars, such as these 4 individuals, to achieve academic excellence, a faculty that excels in transmitting and creating knowledge and inspiring our students to meet and even exceed their goals. Distinguished professorships also give us the means to attract and retain the best scholars, the best teachers, and the best educational leaders who together bring out the very best in our students. This ceremony is also meaningful to me because looking at the records of these 4 distinguished professors, I am so proud that they are at Hofstra. I'll leave it to Dean Seabold to introduce each one in more depth. I will just spend a few minutes to introduce them myself. In addition, I want to say that I will also spend a few minutes just mentioning not only the scholars, but the donors who established the professorship. The Augustus B. Weller Chair was founded in 1963 to recognize an outstanding teacher and scholar at the university. The chair was established by the friends and admirers of Mr. Weller in recognition of his accomplishments as a Hofstra trustee. We even named the building after him. And a banker and an educator and a dedicated servant of his community. The Weller Chair will go to Dr. Gregory DeFreitas, who is a dedicated and committed professor of economics. He's the founding director of the Labor Studies program at Hofstra University and the director of the Center for the Study of Labor and Democracy. The Leo Guthart Distinguished Professorship in Teaching Excellence was established in 1996 through the generosity of Dr. Leo Guthart. He was a successful CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Now he is a successful venture capitalist, and he has an exceptional record, an incredible record of service to Hofstra University. He is not a graduate of Hofstra. He is a graduate of, he has 3 degrees from Harvard, which is sort of like Hofstra, but he has served on the university's Board of Trustees for more than 46 years, and 3 of those years as chair of the board. And today we invest a terrific faculty member, Andrea Libresco, a professor in the Department of Teaching, Learning, and Technology, and the co-director of the Early Childhood and Childhood Education Program with the Guthart Professorship. Dr. Mervin Livingston Schloss Distinguished Professorship for the Studies of Disabilities was established in 1983 by Dr. Schloss in memory of his parents, Lillian and Hyman Schloss. Dr. Craig Rustici, an exceptional scholar and an exceptional teacher, is receiving this professorship. Next, the Dorothy and Arthur Engle Distinguished Professor of Literature was established in 2014 through a bequest from the estate of Robert Arthur Engle. The professorship is named for Mr. Engle and his spouse, Dorothy Manning Engle. Dorothy was a student leader and a devoted alumna of this university, and she also served as a Hofstra administrator from 1946 until her retirement in 1979. Today, we bestow this professorship on the outstanding faculty member, Benita Sampedro Vizcaya. We are proud to have faculty members of the quality of these 4 exceptional scholars of the Hofstra College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. Each of them add to the renown and reputation of our university and the experience of our students. I look forward to hearing more about each of their accomplishments from Dean Seabold, and I look forward to hearing from each of the recipients in a few moments after we invest them. I just want to extend to Professors DeFreitas, Libresco, Rustici, and Sampedro my personal congratulations, my pleasure in being a colleague of yours, and the congratulations of the Hofstra Board of Trustees. Congratulations. Dan?
Thank you, President Rabinowitz. It's now my pleasure to introduce the Dean of Hofstra College, Daniel E. Seabold.
As acting dean, it is my privilege to recommend for investiture 4 professors who have brought honor to the university through outstanding teaching, service, and scholarship. Dr. Gregory E. DeFreitas is to be invested as the Augustus B. Weller Chair. Dr. DeFreitas earned a BA at Stanford University and an MA and PhD from Columbia University. Before joining Hofstra's economics faculty in 1986, he taught at Barnard College, Columbia University, the University of Toronto, and Cambridge University. Dr. DeFreitas is a labor economist teaching a variety of employment-related courses, as well as courses in the FYC program and Honors College. His research includes job and pay trends, the economics of immigration, earnings inequality, youth unemployment, and the New York City economy. As director of the Center for the Study of Labor and Democracy, Dr. DeFreitas has organized public lectures and conferences on a wide range of labor issues and produced scholarly research, much of which is published in the Center's journal, Regional Labor Review. He is a member of the Advisory Council for the Economic Policy Institute in Washington, D.C., a member of the Research Advisory Board for the Fiscal Policy Institute in New York, and a member of the Board of Advisors for the Center for the Study of Working Class Life at SUNY Stony Brook. Dr. DeFreitas is one of the university's most frequent interviewed faculty experts. Dr. Andrea Libresco is to be invested as the Leo A. Guthart Distinguished Professor in Teaching Excellence. Dr. Libresco earned a BA with honors in history from Swarthmore College, an MAT in social studies from Brown University, a CAS in educational administration from Hofstra University, and an EDD in social studies education from Teachers College, Columbia University. She is certified by New York State as a school administrator and supervisor and in secondary schools social studies. Dr. Libresco came to Hofstra's School of Education in 2001, where she is a professor in the Department of Teaching, Learning, and Technology. Dr. Libresco now serves as director of the Peace and Conflict Studies minor and of the Center for Civic Engagement minor, as director for Peace Studies, and as co-director of the Peace Fellows program. In the past, she has served as pedagogy director for the Center for Teaching and Scholarly Excellence and as a graduate director. Dr. Libresco is a prolific scholar who continues to contribute to the national discourse on social studies education. She has published 38 journal articles and reviews and 10 book chapters since her hire, and has written or co-edited several books. She is a frequent presenter at local and national conferences, including for the National Council for the Social Studies and the American Education Research Association. Dr. Craig M. Rustici is to be invested as the Mervin Livingston Schloss Distinguished Professor for the Study of Disabilities. Dr. Rustici earned an AB in English from Lafayette College and an MA and PhD in English from the University of Chicago. While a graduate student at Chicago, he held the Norman McLean Lectureship. Dr. Rustici joined Hofstra's English department in 1992, where he teaches courses on early modern literature, Shakespeare, and the European and British literary traditions, with particular attention to various forms of otherness. He served as associate chair of the department from 2007 to 2012, and then as chair from 2013 to 2019. Since 2016, he has been the director of the minor program in Medicine, Culture, and Society. And in 2019, he became the director of Hofstra's Disability Studies program, which includes a minor and a concentration within the pre-health major. Dr. Rustici is actively creating partnerships between the Disability Studies program and Hofstra's Neuroscience program, its Cognitive Science program, and the Osler Society at the Zucker School of Medicine. An accomplished scholar, Dr. Rustici is the author of the book, The Afterlife of Pope Joan, and is presented at numerous national and international conferences. Dr. Benita Sampedro is to be invested as the Dorothy and Arthur Engle Distinguished Professor of Literature. Dr. Sampedro earned a bachelor's degree from University of Santiago de Compostela and an MA and PhD in Spanish and Portuguese from New York University. She joined Hofstra's Romance Languages and Literatures Department in 1997. As the founding associate director of the Center for Race, Culture, and Social Justice, she continues to sit on the center's advisory board. She has also been co-director of the Latin American and Caribbean Studies program since 2002. Dr. Sampedro is a highly regarded scholar in her field and a sought-after international speaker. Her research interests focus on Spanish colonialism in both Africa and Latin America. Her body of publications includes 3 edited books, 4 edited peer-reviewed journal special issues, 9 book chapters, 13 articles in peer-reviewed journals, as well as several encyclopedia entries and book prologues. She has appeared in TV interviews and media appearances and has also written several articles for media outlets. Mr. President, it is my pleasure now to recommend that you invest Dr. Gregory E. DeFreitas as the August B. Weller Chair, that you invest Dr. Andrea Libresco as the Leo A. Guthart Distinguished Professor in Teaching Excellence, that you invest Dr. Craig M. Rustici as the Mervin Livingston Schloss Distinguished Professor for the Study of Disabilities, and that you invest Dr. Benita Sampedro as the Dorothy and Arthur Engle Distinguished Professor of Literature.
Thank you, Dean Seabold. It's my pleasure. I see the Hofstra grounds people are at work by mowing outside my window, so I hope that the noise is not disturbing. But what an honor it is to be able to confer these professorships on each of you. So first, Professor DeFreitas, it is a privilege to invest you with the August B. Weller Chair with all of the reputational benefit and rights and responsibilities inherent in that. And I ask you, since we're not in person, to acknowledge your acceptance of this honor. If you happen to have your medal, you can put it on. But it's not required. But I will take that as your acceptance, but it would be good if you just formally said that you accept.
I do accept, and I'm very grateful for the honor of being appointed to the Weller Chair. Thank you.
Congratulations. Professor Libresco, it's my privilege to invest you with the Leo Guthart Distinguished Professorship in Teaching Excellence, something that's very, very dear to my heart. And with it comes all the rights and responsibilities of that designation. And we ask you to please acknowledge your acceptance of this honor. I know you watched Dean Lenahan's investiture, and therefore I know you brought your medal with you. Do you accept, would you accept this honor on behalf of the trustees of the university?
Yes, I accept it gratefully. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Congratulations. And Professor Rustici, it is my honor to invest you with the Dr. Mervin Livingston Schloss Distinguished Professorship for the Study of Disabilities, another subject which is very dear to my heart. With that professorship comes all the rights and reputational benefit inherent in that designation. And I ask you, I don't know whether you brought your medal with you or not, but I ask you in some way if you accept this honor.
I certainly accept with gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. And last but certainly not least, Professor Sampedro, it is my privilege to invest you with the Dorothy and Arthur Engle Distinguished Professorship of Literature. Your scholarly record is awe-inspiring. And with that professorship comes, you're entitled to all of the rights and benefits that are inherent in that. And so we ask you in some manner to please indicate or acknowledge your acceptance of this honor.
I accept the honor.
And you have your medal.
Yes.
Very good.
Thank you.
And congratulations to each of our recipients. And I think at this point, we want to hear from some words from each one of them.
So first, a round of applause for all the recipients. And then it's a pleasure now to introduce the Weller Chairholder, Gregory DeFreitas, for some remarks.
Well, thank you, Provost Berliner, President Rabinowitz, Dean Seabold. I just want to say I'm very honored and grateful to the Board of Trustees and to the Weller family for being appointed to the Weller Chair in Economics, which I understand was the first endowed university research chair on Long Island. Actually, when I first joined the Hofstra Economics Department, one of my most supportive colleagues was the very first holder of the Weller Chair. Harvey Levin was a nationally known expert in telecommunications economics, always much in demand for press interviews, speaking engagements, testimony before government committees. Harvey also founded and ran our public policy workshop and always credited the Weller Chair for giving him the space, the resources and time for his role as a public intellectual alongside teaching and research. And that really forever shaped my image of the Weller Chair. Now, while I might not share Harvey's passion for researching the electromagnetic spectrum, I am passionate about issues of employment inequality and economic democracy. A big portion of the students we teach in economics actually aim for business careers. So our entire faculty has always felt duty-bound to provide them a balanced approach to understanding labor management relations. So over 2 decades ago, thanks to generous support from Hofstra and several foundations, I and an interdisciplinary set of colleagues established the Center for the Study of Labor and Democracy, a research institute that aims to contribute to the public's education and to debate about important wage and employment issues. Each year, we not only organize original research projects for both faculty and students, but we also organize a lot of conferences and seminars that have brought literally hundreds of outside speakers and guests to campus. And as was noted, we established a new labor studies degree program that offers a major, a minor, as well as an adult certificate in labor studies through continuing ed. The active involvement of my wonderful colleagues in economics has been absolutely integral to all of this. In addition, we also regularly publish Regional Labor Review, one of the oldest of the select group of referee journals continuously published at Hofstra. It disseminates our research findings about the New York labor market to a wide audience in a non-technical, widely accessible format. Our research, our publications, our public events over the last 24 years have won us a gratifying level of attention, both in the New York metro area and beyond. Among the media that cite our work have been the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, and Reuters. And Newsday interviews us pretty much every month as soon as the latest unemployment and wage statistics are released for our interpretation of them. It will give me great pride as the new Weller Chair Professor in Economics to look forward to building on and celebrating this work in our 25th anniversary year. Thank you so much for that opportunity.
Thank you, Greg. We now have the pleasure from hearing from the Leo A. Guthart Distinguished Professor, Andrea Libresco.
I'd like to thank Leo Guthart for endowing a professorship to encourage teaching excellence. I know that my colleagues in the School of Ed and I really appreciate this important emphasis on pedagogy. The Hofstra Network of Elementary Teachers put on a program over a decade ago that we called The Teacher Who Shaped My Life. Today, I'd like to emulate Susan B. Anthony, who began as a teacher and who on her deathbed, as if she were seeing each one, murmured the names of all who had worked with her in the cause of suffrage. I'd like to murmur the names of some of the stellar teachers who shaped my life. My 6th grade teacher, Mrs. Allard, who read aloud to us for half an hour every day. We didn't know then that she was nurturing fluent, expressive reading for pleasure. We just begged her to continue. Mrs. Allard would be delighted to know that my literacy colleague, Alan Flurkey, and I just did a book marathon yesterday in our classes. The first thing Mr. Watson had us do in 9th grade in 1972 was fill out questionnaires to see where we fell on the political spectrum, so we would not just echo our parents' views as we selected candidates to support and perhaps to volunteer for. Authentic intellectual pedagogy, to be sure, and I've used political spectrum tests in my own teaching ever since. Mr. Poppy's extensive use of political cartoons in my 11th grade US history class strengthened our critical thinking skills and our ability to evaluate policies past and present. We liked being let in on the secret society of sophisticated humor, and cartoons are still a mainstay of my teaching. One of my most challenging teachers taught my 12th grade AP English class. Ms. Higgins' single-spaced page of typed comments on my Sinclair Lewis paper began, "Andrea, dear, you have written your usual safe A paper." She detailed the directions I might have taken had I chosen to think a bit more. I never, not consciously at least, wrote a safe paper again. In college, Harry Wright taught 8 of us in an honors seminar in South Africa. We wrote papers bi-weekly as a basis for discussion. And while our professor had written a widely quoted book on the subject, he made us responsible for making and defending arguments about South African history. And he spent an hour with each of us offering writing critiques after we'd completed our papers. I have tried to emulate him in both ways, encouraging students to be the primary participants in their own learning and working with them to develop a real precision of language and thoughtfulness in their writing. In grad school, Mary Jo Buell taught the first women's history course I ever took. She modeled John Dewey's experience in education, connecting the personal and the political in her lecture on the intersection of the civil rights, anti-war, and women's movements, and her own role in them. Part of teaching excellence is being a mentor who reaches out to support an academic journey. Former Hofstra professor Cheryl Shakeshaft put the idea of getting a doctorate in my head when I was in my mid-20s, and Margaret Crocco helped me across the finish line when I was 46. Over the years, I've learned from my children's teachers as well. In kindergarten, our daughter was not fond of getting messy, so she was not a fan of playing with the class pets. Her teacher, Miss Forrest, was ultimately able to convince her to take the chinchilla into her lap. Naturally, the chinchilla peed on her, whereupon Miss Forrest gave our daughter a sticker that read, "Science is surprising." Active learning where education is not preparation for life, but life itself. And yeah, that's John Dewey again. When my son finished his first week in first grade in Miss Dwyer's class, he announced, "I'm learning so much, my head is going to explode." All with a teacher who celebrated each and every child and the individual differences and needs they displayed. Many of my colleagues in teaching, learning, and technology have been Teacher of the Year, and I can see why. Their attention to the different circumstances and learning needs of each student, commitment to nurture class participation, and willingness to challenge their students' thinking has made them, and I include our many adjuncts who are former public school teachers in their number, they've been made models for me throughout my time at Hofstra. Many former students do Hofstra proud every day in their schools. Former student and veteran social studies teacher and supervisor Jeanette Belantic can develop curriculum on any topic because she thinks about how to scaffold lessons that make students' thinking visible. Former elementary program student Lauren Brown does not shy away from controversial topics with her 5th graders. She gives students the language to engage in civil discourse about them. Karen Poix records her 6th graders working in primary source analysis groups, then listens to them on the hour-long drive home so she can pinpoint their knowledge and skills gaps. Sue Sparber recognized that learning could not be confined to her social studies classroom. So she developed 2 model programs, a team-taught American history and literature block with her colleague and fellow Hofstra alum Diane Reinhardt, and I taught in that, and a truly participatory civics class in which students connected their in-class learning with their service learning in the community. And I have many colleagues here at Hofstra whose teaching extends far beyond the classroom. Alan Singer launched a secondary new teacher network decades ago because he knew that teaching excellence doesn't happen magically your first year. New teachers need a nurturing community. Our Hofstra network of elementary teachers tries to do that at the primary and intermediate levels. The mentors in the Honors College, and I got to work with Warren Frasina, Vim Pasupathy, Neil Donahue, Lauren Kozel, Brett Bennington, Janet Lanahan, and Kara Alimo. They take students on myriad field trips to plays, fossil expeditions, hiking trips, to nurture curiosity and community beyond the classroom. Multiple professors, Mario Murillo, Marty Melkonian, Rusty Eisenberg, David Green, Mike DiNicenzo, and Greg Maney gave of their time to teach in the non-credit Peace Fellows program with me and Margaret Melkonian, director of one of the Center for Civic Engagement's community partners, which is the Long Island Alliance for Peaceful Alternatives, to nurture students to be wide awake in the world regarding issues of peace and conflict, to engage in the quest for reliable knowledge, to think critically about the information they acquire, and then act on that knowledge throughout their lives. Many alums of the Peace Fellows program have gone on to work for organizations to make the world more peaceful and just in the areas of peace and women's rights, alternative media, deliberative dialogue, housing, and food security. all of the teachers whose names I have murmured today, and many more I wish I could have murmured, like all the professors I observed and wrote about as Director of Pedagogy for the Center for Teaching and Scholarly Excellence. All of them have emulated Dewey's both and spirit, supporting knowledge and skills, rigor and risk, prose and passion, nurture and independence, the personal and the political, becoming informed and becoming engaged, learning for intellectual reward, and learning to create a better society, a beloved community. I thank all of these teachers, and I include my unofficial teachers, my parents, Iris and Emil, who valued education as much as anyone I've ever met, my husband, Mike, children, Leah and Zach, and my newest teacher, Beatrice, in their number. And of course, I thank Leo Guthart and Hofstra for allowing me to recognize all of these teachers who shaped my life and the lives of so many others. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. We now have the pleasure of hearing from the Mervin Livingston Schloss Distinguished Professor Craig Rustici.
Thank you, President Rabinowitz, Provost Berliner, and Dean Seabold. Thank you also to the committee members that recommended me for this professorship. I'd also like to thank my two disability studies mentors, Karen Valerius, my predecessor as Director of Disability Studies, and Tom Kauser, who not only founded Disability Studies program at Hofstra, but also helped found Disability Studies as an academic discipline. I'm also indebted to Deborah Willett at the Hofstra Archives for her invaluable help with my current research, and my Honors College research assistant, Amanda Leparage, for her work in the archives this semester. Regarding my personal experience with disability, I'm grateful to Gary Kerman, a physician who, unlike others, did not simply inform me that my condition was stable and untreatable and send me on my way, but rather introduced me to assistive devices. In the discourse of disability studies, we might say that he is a physician who looks beyond the medical model. I'm also grateful for those the New York State Commission for the Blind and the Lighthouse who furthered my education in assistive technology, as well as the people I've never met who developed the text-to-speech software that makes it possible for me to undertake the volume and duration of reading required of a teacher and researcher. I'm humbled to share this honor with the two people who held this professorship before me. And this being a Zoom event, I'll use a few slides to recognize their contributions. My immediate predecessor as Schloss Distinguished Professor, the deaf activist and scholar Frank Bowe, organized the protests that led, after a 4-year delay, to implementation of the 1973 Rehabilitation Act. Dr. Bowe articulated a fundamental premise of disability studies when he wrote, America handicaps disabled people, and because that is true, we are handicapping America itself. In a great many cases, anomalous bodies and minds do not disable people. Instead, the physical and social environment such people must negotiate are what disables them. Harold Euchre, the first Schloss professor, was a psychologist living with cerebral palsy whose scale for assessing attitudes toward people with disabilities, developed in 1960, continues to be used today. We had a query earlier this semester from someone working on a doctoral dissertation asking to use his scale. He also led Hofstra's initiative to meet the needs of students with disabilities decades before the ADA. One expression of Dr. Euchre's impact on those students appears in a memoir by Connie Panzarino, an alum of that program, who became a leading lesbian disability activist. She wrote, "He spoke with slurred speech, his face contorted with muscle spasms. He talked about civil rights, the right to be autonomous, and about where people's negative attitudes came from and what could be done about changing them. I savored each word, and I imprinted them in my mind." Hofstra is rightly proud of its history as the first private university to create an architecturally barrier-free campus, an accomplishment memorialized through this plaque outside Hager Hall. The university can also take pride in alums who undertook disability activism on campus and beyond. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, disabled students at Hofstra organized, pressed the university to fulfill its promises of accessibility, challenged administrators to navigate campus for a day in a wheelchair, and lobbied for legislation such as the 1975 Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. This is actually a picture provided by one of those alums to me of a group in Albany lobbying for legislation. The memoirist and activist Connie Panzarino, whom I just mentioned, who is pictured on the right, she was, in addition to a poet and memoirist, a creative arts therapist and an artist. Connie Panzarino was one of those students. I think I have time to introduce one more. Paul Hearn, seen as a Hofstra student in this Newsday article, lived with a brittle bone disorder that prevented him from growing more than 4 feet tall, and sometimes required that he navigate campus in a litter. One of the interesting things about this article is they don't mention his disability at all, and they almost seem to have framed the picture to avoid displaying either the wheelchair or more likely the litter that he's sitting in. In October 1970, he ran for Hofstra student government president and defeated future US Senator Norm Coleman. After graduating from Hofstra Law, he established a legal services office for people with disabilities. Later, as director of the National Council on Disability, he helped draft the 1990 Americans with Disabilities Act. And this was actually his toast to the passage of that act. As Schloss Distinguished Professor, I pledge to honor the legacies of Frank Bowe and Harold Euchre and the contributions of alums such as Connie Panzarino, Paul Hearn, and many others. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. And now we have the honor of hearing from Benita Sampedro, the Dorothy and Arthur Engle Distinguished Professor.
Thank you. I am grateful and humbled to be named to this professorship. It has come as a wonderful surprise at the end of what has been an unprecedented year for all of us. Before I heard the news, I had been planning a number of short and medium-term career goals, traveling back to North and to West Africa to continue my research, and returning to Mexico and Cuba for other projects. For many months, I have been looking forward to resuming archival and ethnographic work where I left it before the pandemic, and like many of you, looking forward to re-entering the world of conferences, to giving and listening to in-person lectures again. But being awarded a distinguished professorship was not in my plans. I am honored and thrilled to be acknowledged alongside my colleagues. I am grateful to Hofstra for having provided me over the years with a stable, steady, friendly, and supportive institution. And I have always appreciated the respect for the scholarly choices and engagements of faculty, which has allowed me to explore bounded and unbounded territories, physically and theoretically, without disciplinary constraints. The Faculty Research and Development Grants and the Presidential Research Awards have been useful in pursuing some of these scholarly ventures. And I want to acknowledge the trust and solidarity of my faculty colleagues in the Department of Romance Languages and Literatures, in the Latin American and Caribbean Studies program, and in other units on campus, as these spaces often allowed for the pedagogical materialization of some of my scholarly projects. Over the years, I had the opportunity to serve the profession in a number of roles, including as an elected member of the Executive Committee of the Modern Languages Association, as Vice Director of the Afro-Hispanic Studies Center in Madrid, and as a member of the PhD Dissertation Committee for numerous candidates in my area of expertise in universities in the US and abroad. I have served as reviewer for countless book manuscripts for university presses and articles for refereed academic journals, and I currently serve on the editorial board of several such journals. On a more institutional level, I have served as external evaluator for departments of universities nearby and further afar, and as external evaluator for many tenure and promotion candidates nationwide. These have all been enriching opportunities to gain a broader perspective on the profession, and in turn, I've had the chance to bring to bear my knowledge of how Hofstra works effectively for our students and for our faculty. It has also been a testimony to Hofstra's place within academia. Here on campus, I had the honor of being one of the founding associate directors of the Center for Race, Culture, and Social Justice, and of having collaborated with the Hofstra Cultural Center on an ongoing basis in an endless stream of exciting events. I wish to acknowledge the work of Atheling Collins, Carol Mallison, and a number of other colleagues. Hofstra will not be the same place without the bubbling activity of the Cultural Center, the Intercultural Engagement and Inclusion Office, the NOAA program, and the Center for Civic Engagement. I had the privilege to serve in different elected positions at the Hofstra chapter of the AAUP, and I have the sense that Hofstra will probably have had a different culture were it not for its 5 energetic campus unions. The Hofstra students have been, over the years, a source of constant stimulation and a demand for relevant, meaningful class conversation and reading materials. This afternoon, I will be back with them in one of the large Breslin lecture rooms for the last class session of the semester. Despite all of the challenges, students continue to impress us. In my course on Latinx communities of New York this afternoon, I have engaged with the history of Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, Cubans, Salvadorians, Hondurans, Panamanians, Colombians, and Ecuadorians as part of New York City's, and in fact, Long Island's cultural and political fabric. And we have read about race, ethnicity, class, gender, migration histories, border politics, and bilingualism. We will discuss Spanglish and code switching this afternoon. Students in one other course I teach this afternoon, which is taught entirely in Spanish, have delved into cultural production, social change, and political critique in various places of the global Hispanic world. Transcending the study of Spanish as a useful, practical language on a pedagogical level, we have used it instead to address pressing issues of global concern, such as border politics, border lives and existence, migration and frontiers, extractivism and environmental concerns, and radical gender and feminist proposals against economic neoliberal designs and policies. The overarching theme and connecting thread for this course has been the concept of precariousness, understood as a global condition and not limited to the so-called Hispanic world, a world we urgently need to understand. So thank you to the Board of Trustees, to President Rabinowitz, to Provost Berliner, to Dean Seabold, and all the invisible hands that also helped made this event possible in public relations and beyond. And warm congratulations to my fellow distinguished professors, Gregory DeFreitas, Andrea Libresco, and Craig Rustici. And for my family who is listening to me from Galicia, moitas grazas.
Thank you, Benita. We've now had the pleasure of honoring and hearing from 4 extraordinarily articulate distinguished professors. Congratulations to all of you. This concludes our formal program. I'm so sorry we're not in person to have the opportunity for all of us to congratulate you in person, but Congratulations and continued success.